Tell us a little bit about the history, Ben, of how Talking Philanthropy came about. What gave you the idea?
Well, it was something actually that came out of the firm. We, as a team, met, and we were conscious after our, I think, over 10 years of existence, we hadn't done that much to help contribute the thinking behind philanthropy. So one of the team came up with this idea, said, why don't we do a little thought leadership session, bring some of the leaders in the sector together, get some key speakers, invite some of our key clients, bring them along for a day and have a session behind closed doors where we could actually workshop some of the big key themes. And that actually I hosted in my house in the middle of Suffolk, which is a bit bizarre. But anyway, it worked so well and we got such incredible interaction. We thought, wow, we're onto something. So that grew, and we took it to London. We then did 2 events in London, and the last event we did with over 200 attendees. And we continue to attract even bigger speakers and bigger names. And it's just grown arms and legs. So we're very, very pleased to now be announcing our 4th Talking Philanthropy, which is by far the biggest. It will be the biggest because it will be online, which is the big change that we've had to do, obviously, for given obvious reasons. So it's really developed now into a global event. And we're extremely pleased as well that the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation has partnered with us on this occasion. So next year, in May, when we have the event, we will be partnering with them and others, which I'll talk about a little bit. So we're very pleased that at that level now, we've got recognition of the importance of thought leadership.
Well, I, of course, took part in 2 of your London events. I was chairing several of the sessions. And what really struck me about both of them is the very high level of guests that you get. So you've had some major philanthropists address your conference. And I felt that we really got under the skin of what makes them give, what makes them tick, what drives them. So why are you going to do it this time in Asia in 2021?
For that exact reason, because we need time actually to really examine and think about, have time to think about Asian philanthropy. So the firm actually, we're nearly 20 years old now, was founded in Hong Kong. So I was living in Hong Kong when I set up the business. And we've always had Asia in our DNA. Our office is very important in Asia and we do a lot of Asian work. But we've always been really interested in how you can develop philanthropy in Asia and support the development. And actually, it's been a great success story. There's been incredible giving in Asia and some real leadership. But there's also some really important issues that need to be looked at. One of the biggest issues that we think, and that's a major theme behind this Talking Philanthropy, is actually around the role of government. And that's another reason why we're very pleased as well that we partnered with our host, which is the Lee Kuan Yew School of Public Policy, because they're very much connected into that whole scene of the role of government. What can government do to encourage and foster philanthropy? So we believe by bringing it together in Asia, we can really support and help the development of Asian philanthropy.
And how does the philanthropic landscape differ in Asia to, say, Europe and the US?
Well, Asia has a huge history of giving, a long, long history. So this is nothing new. But how it differs, I think, is, or this distinct differentiation at the moment is that if you divided up the world very simply, there's 1/3 of the ultra high net worths, 1/3 of the super rich are now in Asia. And that's actually growing, and exponentially, you could argue that it'll overtake everyone else, or maybe already has. And the question is, and there's also these massive inequalities, which we all know about. So you've got massive inequality and you've got huge wealth amongst the ultras and the high net worth individual community. So how does philanthropy help rebalance that? What's the role of philanthropy in actually addressing inequality? And I think that's the key difference. Now in the US, we've got 2% of GDP. It's the gold standard of the world, that most US philanthropists have signed a giving pledge, pledging half their wealth to go to charity at least. So we've got a good gold standard, but in Asia, we've got a long way to go before we kind of get those levels of commitment. And so that's really the key thing, is how can we help accelerate that? And I think the role of government is central in that, in terms of supporting that acceleration.
I mean, what other issues are there facing Asia Pacific nations in regard to philanthropy that you don't see elsewhere?
Well, I think one of the concerns I have at the moment is, and it's geopolitics, people are a little bit more nervous about talking about big gifts. And that's something we've just seen in the last couple of years. And I'm very, very worried that we're at a kind of a tipping point and things may even go backwards. We had a lot of good announcements across Asia where ultra high net worths were quite happy and actually very proud of making announcements into the hundreds of millions, we haven't seen the billion plus sorts of US levels yet. And I fear that the kind of worry around how that's perceived and how government will react is holding that back, because that's what we should be seeing, I believe. It'll be very different kind of gifts, but we should be seeing that kind of level of commitment in Asia. I have to say, though, in terms of the coronavirus response across the world, the whole philanthropic community's come together, and Asia has absolutely stepped up in terms of giving. So it's a really interesting moment, again, to bring that to the table.
Well, one of my biggest memories, I think, from one of your previous events in London of Talking Philanthropy was the presence of Ronnie Chan. What a great guy. And him talking about this huge gift that he gave to Harvard to go in to medical research. And he specifically raised the issue of pandemics. I mean, it was very prescient, wasn't it?
Exactly. And Ronnie is a phenomenal leader in philanthropy and everything he's done, as well as a phenomenal giver, in actual fact. And that talk he gave about seeing that pandemics was actually a huge problem, one of the world's biggest problems that it faced. This was a few years ago, two years plus, when we had that talk. And then to see it actually come true and actually see his center play such an important role in trying to address and many other philanthropists involved in pandemics, as well as the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation as well. A lot of these philanthropists predicted this was going to happen, when actually very few politicians were talking about it. And Ronnie is one of those leaders, and it was phenomenal talk. And in a way, that kind of defines thought leadership. If you can get ahead of something like a pandemic coming down the chute, that is very valuable, although none of us knew it was going to hit us in the way that it would. But actually that level of thinking intellectually about the role of philanthropy in that kind of context is exactly what Talking Philanthropy is about.
So given that we are now in a pandemic and all our lives have changed as a result, how will Talking Philanthropy in 2021 look different from the previous conferences that you've had?
Well, we're going to miss the getting together, like we're all missing the getting together. That's just not possible. And we assume by next May, that's still not going to be possible. So what we've actually come, though, is to a solution which actually turns that on its head. And we talked and thought a lot about it across the firm. So how can we actually use this as an opportunity? One of the great things is we managed to partner also with the Cambridge University's Centre for Strategic Philanthropy, which is particularly interested in developing economies and philanthropy in developing economies. So they will be our other co-host, which will be in Europe. And that means that we're actually doing a global event that will be online predominantly. We hope there will be some attendance, but we'll have to judge that nearer the time, where everyone can come in for free by invitation, but they can come and log in, witness the proceedings in a way that I think has never happened before, with hopefully with audiences in Cambridge, and if the regulations change, audiences is also in Asia. But we can actually really make this very publicly available for all the attendees. So we've gone from a situation where there may be 200 in the room thinking about it and publishing it, to maybe tens of thousands or thousands that can actually have access to this. We'll also be recording it, and we're making it publicly available and disseminating, because we really think it's important to actually share what we're talking about and share what we're thinking about and share some of these issues. I think you might remember as well, the last Talking Philanthropy, we talked about women in philanthropy. And certainly this was something that, when we actually started workshopping, I think you remember we had Steve Shirley talking about it. And it was an incredible panel. And we actually realized that this is probably one of the most important things in philanthropy that we haven't researched, that we haven't thought about in a way that we should have done, and we're actually not addressing. And these are really significant issues for the sector, and they do require some time to think. And I think expanding that to a global audience could be really exciting. And also we will be asking for their participation on the day as well. So that again brings it up to a new level. So really, really is exciting.
So I know you haven't confirmed the speakers yet, but presumably you're hoping to get some prominent Asian women involved.
Absolutely. We've actually got a couple already confirmed, but we're just going to announce those soon. And we have also got some incredible global names, which we'll be announcing. I mean, again, we've been very blessed in the past. People like Ronnie Chan have given us that time and come and shared those thoughts. But we also had, at an early stage, we had Sir Lloyd Dorfman, who came, and we also had Jeff Holt, the incredible people. Sir Howard Davis also spoke, as well as some of the sparkle of people like Dame Darcy Bussell, who came as well and presented our award. So we will also be presenting an award as well this year as well in Asia. So we have a kind of an incredible track record of people being very kind to us with their time and talking very openly about things. And we so far, in terms of the speakers we've got, I think people will not be disappointed. It's pretty exciting how this is shaping up.
Who's your intended audience for this conference?
It's kind of growing. So I think, when we first did this, it was very much practitioners. Then it became leaders in charity, philanthropists, and beginning to get into government. I think probably for this audience, because of the Lee Kuan Yew, the importance of Lee Kuan Yew and the way that's connected, and Professor Danny Quah, who's the dean there, is quite a phenomenal dean, and his influence and the team there, I think it's going to be government as well. And I hope we're going to get the interest right across from China, right across through to India, and really involvement and interest in this, because I think through their school, we can really address the policy issues, which are so exciting. So I think the audience has slightly changed, but also on the day, we want young people that are interested in philanthropy. We want practitioners, hopefully across China and Southeast Asia and maybe India, as well as Europe, because of course we've got Cambridge as our partner here, and the US. The time zones don't exactly work, but we will record this and make it available later. So I think it becomes a global discussion with lots of practitioners, but also people that are just interested, and philanthropists that want to do more. People will need to do more in this current situation, and philanthropists are actually searching for these answers about what they can do. So we can provide some of the answers too about what can be done.
I'm interested you mentioned the younger generation, because of course there is a real urgency now in the world, given all the problems that we face, for people to get involved. And I think there's a new generation of philanthropists coming up from wealthy families who want to give back, who want a purpose. So you'll be looking to engage them as well.
Very much so. And I don't know if you remember, but there was a few people in the audience that spoke about this at the last event and the importance of that next generation. Because of that, we've actually developed 2 awards this year. We're just about to announce. One of them will be the Philanthropy Award, which we've now had 3 recipients of, and we're going to also award that. So we're asking for applications at the moment. But we've also, because of this very fact, have developed a Young Philanthropist Award, or Young Leader in Philanthropy, and we'll be searching for some good nominations for that to really highlight some excellence around the younger generation as they come through, because they are the future. And I think for future events, we will certainly be looking at that, because I think maybe the next Talking Philanthropy will be about exactly this. How do we engage more young people across the world in philanthropy? It's so, so important.
I mean, you've certainly got an amazing array of partners for 2021.
I know, it's a phenomenal collection of people and brands and thought leadership. It's quite incredible. And it all starts with Lee Kuan Yew School of Public Policy, which is part of the National University of Singapore. And Professor Danny Quah there, the dean, is a phenomenal individual, and his team are going to be leading and really hosting this in Asia. And then we're absolutely delighted that University of Cambridge Centre for Strategic Philanthropy has also joined us, and they're hosting the European part at the Judge Business School at Cambridge University. So that's also wonderful. And we've obviously had the support to make this all happen, and the partnership of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, which also will be incredibly important in terms of bringing their experience to bear, and their thoughts on some of these issues. And BirdLife International as well, in terms of the environmental area. And finally, we've just secured the United Nations Foundation, and we're really thrilled about that, because obviously that was set up by Ted Turner's the first US billion gift, and it has been phenomenally successful. So to have the UN Foundation as well is absolutely wonderful.
And what do you hope will be the outcome of this conference? I mean, I know there's going to be a lot of interesting chat, but what
a lot of fun.
Might come out
a lot of fun on the day.
Yeah.
What's the outcome? I think what we've learned from before, and we've talked, just to give a context, we've talked about leadership before, we've talked about mission before, we've talked about women in philanthropy, we talked about wealth transfer, there's sorts of things. This time we're going to be talking about health. So COVID is going to be huge. What's our experience across the world been in terms of health? We're also going to be talking about the environment. Are people really going to give at the level that needs to happen to really make change in the environment? And finally, we're going to talk about education, which has been a really huge success story in Asia. So in terms of what we get out of it, we're going to examine these things. I mean, I think the thing to do is to leave it open. Let's see what comes out of the discussions. like the Women in Philanthropy piece, we didn't know quite how profound that was until we actually looked at it. Maybe it's some different things. I mean, for me, the evidence is, and there's been a lot of good research around that, and we'll be sharing the research. There's some superb work that's been done looking at this issue from the CAPS, which is an organization that does a Doing Good Index. They'll also be presenting. And it looks, and the issue of trust is a very serious issue in terms of lack of trust in Asia. That's a specific thing that I think we need to address. And then also there's regulatory environments. If you over-regulate, everyone becomes terrified of being a trustee, and everyone is terrified they're going to do something wrong. If you under-regulate, then you have problems because money goes missing and corruption happens, and then everyone doesn't believe in the sector. So what is the balance here in terms of that mix? And they've done some great work on that. And trust is a big problem in Asia. People don't trust NGOs particularly, and also big organizations in the way that perhaps they should. They do trust education, and maybe that's why Lee Kuan Yew, for example, is a superb example of a wonderful education institute that has been built very much on philanthropy. It has an amazing endowment. So it's a great example to actually put forward of where it works.
So looking forward, we've all become pretty used to, let's say, flexibility in the time of COVID. So there may be an opportunity for people to attend in person, either in Singapore at the Lee Kuan Yew
and Cambridge,
or in Cambridge. So how do you register your interest, perhaps if you wanted to turn up in person, or indeed if you just want to take part virtually from wherever you are in the world?
Great. So that's a good question. So at the moment, we're asking people to go on our website. There'll be a talkingphilanthropy.com website that's going to be launched in the next few weeks. But that will also take you to globalphilanthropic.com registration, which is to register for everything to do about Talking Philanthropy. So if you go on there, register your name, we will keep you updated. And then we'll give you the login details and what have you nearer the time. So it's as simple as that. You just need to register, and we'll then send you the updates in terms of speakers, in terms of the program, which has been set, but it's still being developed. The panels we're still finalizing, and we'll send that to you. So you'll be very much part of the community. And on the day, we do hope this is going to be a real open global event. And we don't actually think this has happened before, where we've had the likes of Lee Kuan Yew School, the likes of Cambridge University, the likes of these big foundations coming together, talking about these huge issues at this point in time where it's so important. It's never been more important to get together, even online and virtually. Much as we'd love to do it in person like the old days, we've got to assume that might not be possible.
Before I let you go, just give us a couple of examples of what sort of panels you might be doing, what are the titles, the things that you might be discovering, a little taster.
Great. So with health, we're going to really look specifically around COVID. And obviously, the Gates Foundation has just been phenomenal in this area, and what it's done is so leading. But also there's so many other foundations that have done brilliant work, which we'll be showcasing and we'll be discussing. And health has brought us together around this time. The Solidarity Fund, the response we've got there is incredible globally. What's happened in Asia has been incredible. So that's been a great story, but how do we build on that? So health is going to be one of the key panels. On the environment, we're going to be really looking at there are links now really emerging here. And in a way, maybe that's no surprise. The environmental issues are so linked to the health pandemic we just had. More and more people are realizing that. So what can we do on the environmental level that actually can make interventions to stop future pandemics? And global warming and all of that entails is a huge issue for Asia. So how can we actually look at that as a philanthropic issue? And will that be something that people want to give to in Asia? And how do we make it something that people want to give? So again, the panel will bring together policy leaders and leaders in environment. We've also, I have to say, teamed up with, and another partner is BirdLife International. So they also are a partner on that specific panel. So they're keeping us right, and they've done incredible work across the world. And then we're finally looking at education, and we're going to have some examples from China where there's been some success. And also across the world, and obviously Cambridge have done brilliantly, so they will bring that to the table as well as Lee Kuan Yew. So education in secondary and also higher education, and how can we do more, because obviously there's no end in terms of education, it's so important, and how can philanthropists help in Asia around education. So each of these will be bringing together practitioners, thought leaders, academics, to really workshop each of these issues in some detail on the day.
Well, that's Talking Philanthropy in the spring of 2021. I'm certainly looking forward to it. Ben Morton Wright of Global Philanthropic, thank you very much.
We look forward to welcoming you back, Kirsty, as well. Thank you very much.